Hello. My name is Jana T. Wilder. It's a very hard name to pronounce. I'm sorry. I married somebody with the name, so that's why I'm pronouncing it. I'm not Belgian and I'm not Dutch, so just my name, married to. So today I'm going to talk to you about designing for perfect. But before I do that, I want to thank you all for having me here today. It's quite an honor to be here, especially during this first year of this wonderful gathering. I'd like to congratulate the committee for the work that they've done, and I look forward to seeing how this grows for your community. So I'm standing here today representing three things. One is the Interaction Design Association, which is ISDA. One is Meld Studios, which is a company I own. And one is myself. Hi. First, a little bit about the Interaction Design Association. The organization began in 2005, and it is a not-for-profit organization, and our goal is to advance interaction design, the discipline of interaction design. So we do that by providing areas for the community, the global community, to come together to talk and discuss about interaction design and to define interaction design further. We have a conference that we hold once a year. This year, or in 2011, it will be in Colorado, which if you've never been to Colorado in the United States, it's very cold in February and snowy. So people are either happy or sad about that. Next year in 2012, we will be in Dublin, Ireland. And we're hoping that we can bring the conference to Asia in 2014. So let's keep talking about that. That would be great. Another thing that we do, this is the website. We have a discussion list. If you go to ixda.org, maybe some of you have seen it. There's a discussion list that you can join in. It's free. We also have a resource library where you can add information about the work you do, articles that are interesting. Right now the discussion is in English, but we have been working with a group in Brazil who speak Portuguese to create a space for them to be discussing interaction design in Portuguese. And so that's something that we're exploring with other communities that wish to also discuss in their own languages. Another thing that IXDA does that you may find of interest is we have local groups around the world, and we're growing. So right now we have 72 local groups. There are 2 right now in China, 1 in Beijing, and 1 in Shanghai. And these are all groups that were started by people like us who said, I want to bring together people who like to talk about interaction design once a month, twice a year, whatever. And I want to make a time and a place for us to gather. So if you have interest, there's nothing in Guangzhou. Why? You can go and make it. So if you would like, you can come to the site, or you can contact me and say, I would like to start the group here, or wherever you live. And this has been a really great thing for us because we only can meet once, and we only have 700 people come to the conference. So there's over 20,000 people right now who are on the site, which after seeing the numbers of QQ seems really small. It felt really big until I saw 28 million people. I'm also representing Meld Studios, which is a design studio I just started in Sydney, Australia. I'm not Australian. I'm trying to be. We started at the beginning of this year, so we are an interaction and service design studio. We work with large organizations such as banks, the government, and we work really at a strategic level with them to talk about what kind of things do they need to be doing, and then we also will work all the way down into the design of the final product. I'm also wanting to tell you that I'm representing myself because I'm also a designer and a practitioner, and I want you to know that I started from the beginning just like all of you, and I'm still an active practitioner of design, and I'm learning every day, and I will continue to. So when I talk about designing for perfect, it's also from a place of experience. I'm from that little dot in the middle of America. Well, it doesn't look like the middle of America, but it feels like it. That's Iowa, where we grow a lot of corn. That's where I'm from originally. So, what is perfect? There's some definitions of perfect we should talk about. Exactly fitting the need in a certain situation or for a certain purpose. So meaning, whatever it is, it cannot be better than what it is in that moment. Entirely without flaws, defects, or shortcomings. Has anybody designed something like that? Because I will be jealous. So something that again cannot be better. And accurate, exact, or correct in every detail. So under scrutiny, anything that you look at that is considered perfect should be without flaw. So the question is, can you design for perfect? And I think a lot of us try to do that. So imagine, if you will, first I just want to talk quickly about the difference between art and design, because I think it's important when we talk about what designing for perfect is. So art is for the sake of yourself. You're not necessarily creating something for your audience, although you may. But really, your biggest critic is yourself. Whereas design is for the sake of somebody else. And so when we're saying that we're designing for perfect, it's not necessarily just perfect in our eyes. It's perfect for the other person and how they're experiencing it. When we're actually designing, it's very easy for us, especially all of us who care about users and we do research and we want to be have human-centered design as our core. We always think customer. What does the customer want? What does the customer need? But it's actually, our job is much broader than that. And I'm sorry if you think that you don't need a bigger job than you already have. There's sort of three areas that we are designing within. And a lot of times we talk about just the final product, but we need to be thinking about we are designing within an organization. We are designing within a process and a team. And we are designing the thing, the final product. So this is a way to talk about, I think that interaction design is not just about how does the end customer interact with what we design. It's also about how design interacts within an organization, for example. So I'm sure many of you have had the same experience that I have had, which is you are a new designer, a junior designer, and your job is to do research or to do the UI or to do the information architecture or to do all of that. But you have a specific job, and all of the influence feels like it's all the way up there. So for example, you feel like all of the management don't necessarily understand what you do and aren't necessarily embracing design and the power of design and how it can change the business. There's also the feeling that the other people you work with, if it's an engineer or if it's a developer or if it's a manufacturer, that you're always having to convince them that this is the right thing to do. So it's important for us to be thinking about, well, how can we actually be designing for perfect in an organization that doesn't necessarily embrace or respect the work that you do as a person? And my thought with that is you have to start somewhere. And so one of the things that I talk to a lot of designers about is it's okay to complain. You have to complain sometimes to feel better. But you also have to know that you do actually have the power to impact an organization. And you do that by doing good work every day. And you do that by influencing the people you work with, one person at a time. Interaction within a team. You may work with teams that actually all believe in the same thing and all have the same vision of what you're working towards. Or you may be in a situation where nobody else agrees with UCD, with UX, and you're always having to fight to get your voice in. And when I talk to people who are in that situation, which I'm in all the time as well, so don't feel alone, I've found that it's best to, one person at a time, you find the person who you can show, instead of just talking about how much better it is, you show them how much better your design work is because you are using this new process. And one by one, those people will become a voice for you, because it's not something that we can do alone. It's always a collaborative effort. So now I want to talk about what is perfect when it comes to the final product. And so there's different ideas of what perfect could be. And just to note, I don't believe that you ever design perfect right away. It's the process of getting there or having a vision. So what would a perfect interaction between people and a digital device be? So as an example, there's the computers, there's phones, there's your washing machine. How do we actually think about the right kind of experience for these people? So for example, if you imagine a world where we are designing an entirely new experience for eating at a restaurant, where instead of coming in and sitting down and having somebody come and take your order, we are asking people to come in and sit down or come in and write something on a wall or come and do something that's completely different to what they're used to. So one of the questions that you have to ask yourself is, you're changing an experience and you're changing what's expected in terms of behavior. And the question is it okay to go from the traditional all the way to something new, or do you have to slowly get them used to this new way of thinking? And I think that that's important when it comes to digital devices or websites. When people do redesigns of websites and they move everything around and it's entirely different, that moment is very difficult for people coming in for the first time, because they're used to the button being up here and they're used to going right here to sign in. And when you move everything around, they have to relearn and reorient. And so the question is, instead of coming out with the perfect new thing, is there a way for you to slowly show and shift the change? Move one thing at a time. Do it gradually so that they can learn the system. And these are all decisions that we have to make as businesses and as designers. You also have the interaction between people and with services. So for example, this is a picture of two people in Oregon in the United States. And the gentleman in the black jacket is getting his driver's license. And so there's a whole process that he has to go through in order to drive in Oregon. And so the question is, when we're designing for these, it's not just, if you were asked to design just one moment, you have to be thinking about, especially when it comes to a service, how does that actually fit into the larger context? And so the perfect vision cannot be created if you're not thinking about the context. The interaction between people and objects. So if you've seen Don Norman's book, there's some wonderful pictures about stickers and things like that. And it's really about thinking about sort of the affordances and also thinking about how much better can something be. So there's a lot of discussion about toasters, so how you put in your bread and toast your bread. Can you even make a better toaster? And a lot of people try. And so that just goes to show that even though you feel like a toaster could be no better than it is, somebody always will think of that. And so I think it's also giving us the freedom as designers to say, even though I feel like something has been done, let's rethink it. And I see that a lot in China actually now, which I find very exciting. In talking to many of you during my visit, in really rethinking the way the things are and how they could be, which is very inspiring. We also think then about interaction between people and extended processes. This was how you had to buy tickets to go to the soccer match. It seems very complicated just to go to a soccer match, but I'm not a fan, so maybe it's okay. But the idea is, how can we actually be designing for perfect when we have constraints, right? So a lot of times we're having to design within an environment that we don't control. And so I think when we're thinking about, well, what is the vision of what it could be, a lot of times our vision is trying to change the world as it is, and sometimes we don't have that power. And so how can you make the best of what you have? All this to say is, when I talk about designing for perfect, when you think about it, you may feel like, well, there's no reason to, so why should I try? But I think you need to have a vision. You need to have a sense of what would the best experience be for our customers? What would the best experience be for working together as a design team? What would the best experience be for our organization if we actually started with design rather than using design later on as a way to fix things? So I encourage all of you to keep that vision and to keep talking about it and to keep talking to your organization and your management, and to not be quiet about it, because I think the more you talk and the more you show, the more powerful your work will be. Don't be afraid to begin. In the example I talked about before, where we have this idea of this perfect project, this perfect product, but the context isn't ready for it yet. So we have this vision. I saw some designs at the expo yesterday where there was some bike racks that would fit perfectly into the parking spot. But let's say that the government wasn't ready to give up parking space for that. That doesn't mean you stop that project. You start to think about, okay, well, if I can't do the right thing, the perfect thing, what can I start to do now so that once things change, I'm ready and we can actually get there. So start. Don't be afraid to start, even if it's small. Start small. Get little wins. Feel like you're getting some success every day of your work. If you keep working in an environment where you don't feel like you're having an impact, I think it's really difficult to go to work each day and feel like you can do the best design work. So you need to find ways for yourself to find those little moments of success. You may not design for perfect, but you are getting there. So keep trying. Thank you.